In this video, we're going to look at how HTML forms work, and in particular, how data is submitted in an HTML form. I have a sample form here, and right now it's just located on my desktop. And I'm going to open up and show you the HTML code for this page and how it's constructed. I just have the style information collapsed here so that we can have more information available on our screen related to the form. But you can see that we have an opening form tag at the beginning of the form, and if I scroll down to the bottom, there's a closing form tag. So all of the information in our form is contained inside an opening and closing form tag. So all of this form information, like the opening form tag, would be right up here before contact information, and then the closing form tag is down here after the submit and reset buttons. And it's important that all of the information that you want to send from your form is contained inside a single set of opening and closing form tags, because whatever is inside that is what will be sent. So for example, if I had an opening form tag right before this text area and then my closing form tag down here, the only thing that will be sent is what's in this text area. It will not send the information above here because they're not inside the opening form tag. So a single form on your page should have one set of opening and closing form tags. Now, the way this way of form works is when it's submitted, it bundles up the information, the name and value pairs from the form. So let me just quickly demonstrate how this works, and then we'll go back and review what's in the form that is making it work that way. And then I'm going to submit my form. Now, when I submit my form, right now the way it's set up, it's not sending anything to the form processor. I haven't set that up in my form yet. And it looks like it's just resubmitting the form, or it's just clearing out the form. But it's actually submitting the information back to itself. So by default, it's automatically sending the form data back to itself. So you can see from here that I submitted I'm a student, and you can see the information up here in the URL line, and that came from this text field. And the email information you can see here is from some information that I had submitted from this. So this continues on, and you can see the data and information that was submitted by the form. Now if you look at this information, this is the data that would be sent to a form processor, maybe a CGI script or a PHP script, some other type of scripting language that's going to get this information and then process it. So setting up your form with name and value pairs can be very helpful. So let's look at how the form information is set up in here. Now, we talked about the opening form tag, and right now it doesn't have any information in there about where the data should be submitted to. So we'll come back to that in a minute. But let's look at the input. This is the text field that we filled in for name. So we give it a name, and this looks repetitive, but name equals name. So this is where this information is coming from. You can see here. This is the name of the form element for this text field name. And then I'm a student is what was filled in the text field. So again, going back to the code, the next one for email, the name of the text field is called email. And then the value of what is sent to the form is what the user types in. So here, email is the name of this text field, and then the value is what I had typed in. Now this is encoding information. Since I had a space here, this is encoded. The browser will encode this data as it prepares it to send it to a form processor or across the internet. And phone is the same way. Phone has the name phone, and it will send the value of what the user typed in. So that's how text fields work. So what about things like checkboxes? And down here we have checkboxes, input name equals job title, and it's a checkbox, and the value equals developer. So it's going to send job title equals developer, because this isn't something that the user will type in. We're specifying a value that's associated with that particular checkbox. And then the same thing here for these other ones. Job title 2 will say equals designer. And then job title 3 equals programmer. So if they checked off all three, then it will send each of these name and value pairs. So if I switch back to the browser, you can see here we have job title equals developer and job title 2 equals designer. So that's where that information comes from these checkboxes. Now for the select list, while we're here, you can see that the select list is called position, right? Which type of position they're looking for, and we give them the option to select one from that list. So if they selected part-time, it would be PT, full-time is FT, and temporary is temp. So that value will change. Let's look at the code that was used for that. So I'm going to come down here in my code, and here is the information for the select list. So in the select list, the name of it is position, and it's going to send the value for one of these selected options. So it's going to say position equals PT, or position equals FT, or position equals temp, depending on which one the user selected. Now the radio buttons, we have, are you willing to relocate? So we have type equals radio and name equals relocate. If you remember your HTML, the name is what keeps all of the buttons in the radio button group together as one group. So this will say relocate equals yes, or relocate equals no, depending on which radio button option the user selects. And then for the text area, this works a lot like the text field where we're saying name equals, so it's going to say resume equals, and then it's going to put in the value of whatever the user put inside the text fields or inside the text area. And then we have input type equals submit, and this will actually send to the form processor submit equals, in this case, send form. And we can use that in our scripting languages to say, well, if submit is equal to send form or some other value that you might put in here, then you can have your script do something based on the submit button being clicked. So again, looking back at how that is constructed in the URL line when information is submitted, you scroll to the end here, and you can see the radio buttons, relocate equals yes, because I had selected that option. Resume equals, and then I had just typed in some text here. And then you can see submit equals send form. So that is the fundamentals of how the form is set up and ready to send the data to a form processor. It's important to set up the name and value pairs because this kind of information, this is what the form processor is actually going to get to work with. So it's important that this be set up properly so that when the form processor gets that data, you'll be able to read that in and do something with it. Now, we've just been using this and submitting it back to the form processor or back to the form itself to see this data in the URL line. What if we wanted to actually send that to a real form processor? In your HTML, I'm going to go back up to the opening form tag, and to send it to a processor, we put in an attribute action equals, and then inside double quotes, the full URL of the form processor that we are going to send this data to. So I have a form processor out on my web server that is just a PHP script, and its job is to just read in the name and value pairs and display them back on a page on your web browser. So I'm going to save this and then switch back to my form, and I'm going to refresh my page, and I'm going to type in some information again, go off an option, select some things. So when I come down here and send form, see it's sending this information to my form processor, and it's sending the name and value pairs of my form, and then this script is just displaying the data back again in its name and value pair format. So by putting an action with a URL to a script that will process the form data, you can see that it packed up the name and value pairs, and then the form just read those back again. But other scripts that may be developed do other things. They may send an email confirmation. I may take the data from here and put it into a database that will then process orders. So depending on what this script is supposed to do, it will do something different with the data that's being submitted from the form.